Welcome to Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined today by Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of Football Scoop, and you, the hope-filled Irish fan base, in the wake of a second 56-point performance in as many weeks. With that, Tim Priester, I want to ask you this question from Martin Evenflow. What is the fastest thing you've seen in college football? A, the Rocket returning a kick. B, Virginia students rushing the field against Florida State. Or C, Arkansas's fans leaving the stadium before halftime.
I was paying attention to the game. I didn't really see all the Arkansas fans leave. That rush to the field in Virginia was unbelievable. I always say, and I probably will take it to my death that Rocket's still the fastest guy that's ever played for Notre Dame. But man, that rush into the field of Virginia was something, and it was good to hear that. Is it Squirrel White? Is he the receiver that potentially could have been trampled? That he was fine and wasn't injured. But that was something to behold Friday night from our hotel room while I was in Bentonville, outside of Fayetteville.
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, the Virginia students that rush the field, they're coming downhill, so they've got a little advantage there. Like that wouldn't count as an Olympic qualifier time because it was gravity aided.
It's like wind aided run. Yeah.
Give them a lot of credit as well as give me a lot of credit since I picked Virginia straight up on the Football Scoop picks panel. But the only thing faster that I've seen over the weekend was Arkansas's defense turning down tackles.
The end of that game, man. Someone asked me today at the store, literally, were you surprised Pittman got fired? And I said, if you would have asked me that Friday night, will he be fired after the game? But I said, no. If you'd have asked me after Jadarian Price's score, and them watching him run through the secondary and back seven and the booing, I would have been shocked if he wasn't fired.
When I was writing tail of the tape this morning, it's like, should Sam Pittman have been fired or Travis Williams, the defensive coordinator?
Yeah, there should be a dual firing. That's probably true.
He was. I know. Yeah. I understand that he was. So I had to amend what I started writing early this morning to accommodate the fact that he and the defensive line coach and then one of the assistants to the assistants, was fired as well. Because that is, imagine being Mike Denbrock. It's like I can call whatever the hell I want.
And that's true. It's hard to stay on track, I'm sure, when you think you can call whatever you want.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. But no, he was fantastic. He exploited everything that Travis Williams and his defense put out there.
Before we get heavily into Arkansas review, we came from Marcus Freeman's press conference. The injury update is what we expected. Leonard Moore, still questionable with an ankle. Donovan Heinisch, newly questionable with a left shoulder injury. Preston Zinter, still questionable with concussion protocol. I don't think anyone comes out of concussion protocol on the Monday after being in concussion protocol, so we'll see more about Zinter on Thursday. As for Donovan Heinisch, he did play a couple snaps. Did I get this right? Claire Cunningham came up and explained to me that he was injured in practice. Somebody put on our board he was hurt in pregame. I thought it was in practice, and he tried to play, and he couldn't really go.
Well, I may have misunderstood it, but like when you hear a guy suffer an injury in pregame, there's a good chance that he's already kind of banged up, right?
Yeah, I
going
feel
into pregame.
Probably had to be injured in practice and realize it couldn't.
Exactly. So, but Elijah Hughes, who I thought started slowly, ended up making a bunch of plays, and Cole Mullins, who Tim and I have. I love the guy, and how do you not play him now? They were using him on third downs, on passing downs, and then in the fourth quarter they just let him play, and who else among those defensive tackles are actually pushing offensive linemen back? He is. And then you also, I compared it to like a guy like Jason One, who kind of locks horns like a couple of Rams and they can't disengage. Cole Mullins disengages after he's aggressively off the snap, the football. So I'll stop preaching about that because I think in some respects I kind of got a little lucky seeing him do some good things in practice because we don't see very much practice, but he's a dating
player. Back to his true freshman year, though. Before he got hurt. Yeah.
I'm trying to be self-deprecating here a little bit, Tim, but he's a good football player, and I thought he played. He wasn't credited with any tackles, and he had the pass breakup late in the game. But that's how a defensive tackle can play effectively without doing much on the stat chart.
Yeah, and he's twitchy. To your point, TP, he's able to shed those blocks, and Onye is pretty good at point of attack, of standing up at the point of attack, but you're right. He does not break free too well. Rubio, I thought, has shown some improvement
well
in that regard. Especially, I think the last 8 quarters have been some of his better quarters at Notre Dame, but they need those guys to step up. There's a little more Dawson this week as he returned and got some snaps as well. And they need those. They don't necessarily probably need them the next couple of weeks, but you're going to need to be able to rotate guys in over the balance of this season.
Guys, before we get into this, there was a lot of joking questions for the podcast about when does the living, breathing quarterback thing come back, Tim, from 2016, and about midway through the first quarter, it almost came back, to be honest with you, because it was looking like that. But to be honest, to be fair to this, Notre Dame didn't face these quarterbacks very often in a month. Carson Beck, Marcel Reed, Ryan Brown's fine, Talon Green. Next coming up is Maddox Batson, a playoff quarterback. Maivea is coming up. These are all way more than living, breathing quarterbacks, and I think people should remember that. Now, the defense doesn't have that many excuses, but the defense is playing better now. But the string of quarterbacks that are capable doesn't really stop anytime soon when you consider at least 2 of the next 3 opponents.
Yeah, Madsen doesn't really look the part. He's undersized. He kind of short arms the football, but he is a leader.
He's very more than living, breathing, though. He is a guy that can win a game for them. Yes,
there's no doubt. And again, I'm not going to talk about Boise State's offense like we did about Arkansas. And I realize that they lost Ashton Jeanty from last year, but Dylan Riley and Malik Sherrod and to a lesser extent, I think Sire Gaines, those are good running backs. You will see how quickly Malik Sherrod, number 8, and Dylan Riley, I believe number 24, they've got some receivers now. I think that they have some issues on the defensive side of the ball, but this is I tell you what, we talk about culture all the time and that bugs people. Nobody has more culture than Boise State, because you have to have culture to win at a place like that, to be the second winningest team since the turn of the century. They can do some things offensively. Defensively, they're pretty challenged.
And Boise State has carried that through multiple coaches too. I think that's what's impressive, is that you've gone from a Chris Peterson to Harsin to whomever, and now you got Spencer Danielson.
It's probably time to dust off our old joke here as well, Tim Priester. You know why Boise State rotates at running back, though, don't you? Because Ashton Jeanty's not there to stop them from rotating at running back. That's when you all of a sudden have a rotation, trust me, they would not have the same rotation if Ashton Jeanty was there. But Notre Dame has a rotation that's working pretty well. It's called a 1-2 punch in Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. And JB, I think you probably saw what TP and I talked about in instant analysis post game. Last year, it was 1-2. It was not 1A and 1B. Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. This year, it's 1A and 1B. Right now, I know Jeremiah Love's the best, but Jadarian Price's breakthrough, he has been fantastic. He's been just as much the MVP of the last 2 games as was Jeremiah Love, and now we can go back to the 6 carries on 1 drive and no more carries against Georgia again, because he's extremely valuable. He's a better runner than he was last year.
And, it was reasonable to debate coming into this season if the best backfield in college football was Notre Dame with Love and Price, or was it Penn State with Singleton and Katron Allen? The debate's over. A month into the season, the debate is over. There's not a better 1-2 combo at the running back position in college football. Since I did not travel to Fayetteville this past weekend, I got to watch games pretty much wire to wire. And there's been a couple of those Saturdays that I've had, because Miami, I didn't fly in until Sunday, and there's just not the combination of talent, speed, power, versatility. Nothing out there compares to the 1-2 punch, the 1A and 1B punch that Notre Dame has in its backfield right now.
Yeah, for me, the big differentiator is just flat out speed. I mean, those 2 guys are just so fast. And then I would add Love's ability to know what he has to do to stay on his feet. Whether it's he did a lot of spinning against Arkansas, and you got to use that a little bit judiciously, I think. But that's part of it, and just when to be a power back, when to dive for a couple more yards. He has the full capabilities of knowing exactly what he needs to either stay on his feet and keep going downfield, or just to, okay, I'm going to get 2 or 3 extra yards by actually diving. He's sensational. But the big differentiator for me is those 2 guys are damn fast, man.
Priester, I don't know. I think it was the first quarter. It was the first quarter because they were going that way. Another time, Jadarian Price turned the corner over the left tackle, and I looked down to you, and I was like, they forgot how fast he is again.
It's over.
Just, I don't know. He just turns the corner, and people start reaching for him, and all of a sudden, the yardage goes from 1 foot to 4 yards when they're chasing after him.
He creates bad tackling angles, and I'm not exactly sure how you do that, but we've seen it way too much to it's not a coincidence. These guys take a shallow route to him, and then it's over.
Well, he creates bad tackling angles because of what you've already said, TP. Speed, raw speed. Raw speed makes bad tackling angles. Raw speed takes away tackling angles, and that's what we've seen now from both of these running backs in recent weeks.
Well, guess what? You can ask Sider, his running backs coach, about that, Tim. That would be a question for – that's who we have this week.
We have him this
week,
Good.
Yes. Obviously, the running game is as Marcus Freeman pointed out today, is the key to keeping everybody off balance. But, guys, the best performance – well, clearly in a couple of years, you might be able to go back. That's probably a question for Monday Musics. How far can I go back to find a wide receiver, tight end, running back performance in the passing game in which 8 guys catch a ball for at least 10 yards, 8 guys got a first down, 9 guys got a first down, 8 of them over a 20-yard gain. 8 players over a 20-yard gain in your passing attack with a redshirt freshman quarterback who, have we mentioned the name yet in this podcast? Is that how good he was? We didn't need to mention his name yet. Let's turn to CJ Carr, and suddenly a plethora of targets that are all contributing.
Oh my God, he's just when he's on. I mean, Tim, I think you talked about an instant the potential for a pick six. Are you talking about the one that Sorey dropped, or the one along the Arkansas sideline? Okay,
the drop, yeah,
that definitely. But the one where there was a collective, like you could feel the Arkansas fans think, oh, this is a pick.
That was his arm.
Along the Arkansas sideline. It was arm strength, and it was actually a perfect position, pass, positioning when it arrived at Jordan Faison. He just is getting better and better. I'll add another one of his, running moments where he's rolling to his right and Steven Dix is defending Jordan Faison in a flat. And naturally, Dix is, I got to defend this guy because Faison's pretty damn blazing fast himself. And Carr does a pump fake and runs for 14 yards. That's real growth. That and the play that I mentioned when they dropped 8 last week against Purdue and he did another pump fake. He's really, really rounding out his game. But yeah, Tim, the receivers, Faison, the decisions by Carr, when to change his arm angle, when to decide to throw a little quick sidearm pass and get rid of it quickly. He threw one of those to Raritan and then another one to Fields over the middle. His game is just blossoming in so many different ways. And you're right. It's because Mike Brown's receiving core is getting better and better too.
It's 8 consecutive quarters without an interception for CJ Carr. It's during that 8 consecutive quarters, it's only 42 passes, but it's a boatload of touchdowns, as we've touched on, and it's actually on just 1 interception in his last 74 attempts. Plus, he's spreading the ball around. Plus, he's trusting guys to make plays. Plus, he's establishing that he can throw into the middle of the field with Eli Raritan, and he can attack you outside the hashes down the field with a Malachi Fields or a Jordan Faison. So, yeah, this is you guys, again, always know it from a historical perspective so much better than me, but this is the type of offensive arsenal that Notre Dame just hasn't had in quite some time.
Well, this is relevant because one of our followers, James Murphy on Twitter, asked, the first for 2 games, is this the best start for a first-time quarterback, redshirt freshman quarterback? And I mentioned it was Paulus because the Michigan game, he was great. Right. But the next 2 games for Paulus were very, very bad, even though Notre Dame won one of them. The next 2 games for Carr became very, very good. This is the best start for a redshirt freshman quarterback at Notre Dame through 4 games now. You can all change in game 5 if it has to, but I'm saying for now it is. And I don't think it's close.
No, I agree. And now, because of what we saw Saturday, this sounds like a crazy idea, but I was thinking, okay, well, this is his second start on the road. Arkansas could be a difficult place to play. It was not, largely because Notre Dame took the crowd out. I
thought it was loud early when that game started. I thought it was pretty loud.
I did too. Yeah. I know Notre Dame's Ellen Wazalewski, who was in the stands, was saying, he was around the campus and they were trying to get people fired up, and the player walk was very thinly attended. Yeah. But no, I would agree. I mean, I thought when the game started, it was loud, but I kept thinking about Ty Washington's comments about, get on them early and the crowd will disappear. That is exactly what happened. And here was a case where, Arkansas didn't have to actually have turnovers. They just needed to punt, and Notre Dame created a couple punts early, and the offense was going to score. So it was the equivalent of a turnover because you couldn't give the ball back to the Notre Dame offense without them marching down, scoring a touchdown.
Before we move on to segment 2, we do have to cover this defense because I want to quote Trey Biddy, who was our insider's preview on from the Arkansas site. He said, "Will Arkansas let go of the rope?" They let go of the rope. They let go of the rope during this game, but don't need a percentage. But it was part Notre Dame's defense playing better, Tim Priester. Some luck because that swing pass was going for days. There's a deep strike downfield that was missed that was going for days. Drop passes that were first downs early. Then they dropped the rope. How much defensive improvement? How much is a mirage that Arkansas just couldn't do it anymore?
No, I'm not. I mean, I think the drop of the rope was more on the defensive side for Arkansas than it was the offensive side. And frankly, if Freeman referenced them today, it was Tui Alamaka that didn't play the right technique that allowed the 14-yard run to start with Taylon Green. Mm-hmm. And then Botello on the 54-yarder. If you do the proper technique, and that makes sense because Green did. We talked about this during the week. Green he doesn't want to run between the tackles. He wants to run outside, and so you absolutely take that away from him. And in those two instances, they didn't. But otherwise, I mean, I thought the secondary played really fast and played, pretty sticky coverage. And I asked Freeman about that, and it wasn't. I think it's interesting. Like simplify the defense. It's not making less calls per se, like within a coverage, but it's doing, like he said, you can be in cover 4 and do 5 different things. Well, or you can be in cover 4 and do 2 or 3 different things. And that was the route that they chose. It gets pretty technical at that point, but they played fast. I thought the secondary played really, really well. Tay Johnson set a tone really early. Devontae Smith made a difference for them. Mark Zachary played much better to the point where he badly injured a player in the end zone. They played fast and furious on defense. And then some of the guys that we mentioned, the defensive tackle, they immediately, it doesn't show up in the box score with quarterback pressures. But remember we talked about make Taylon Green take his eyes, instead of looking downfield, make him think about escape routes and look for escape routes. And by the way, Notre Dame has quietly improved to number 26 in the country in defensive pass completion percentage.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think Notre Dame's defense, I think, made Arkansas drop the rope because it was able to force a couple of field goals, including early. I mean, the opening drive when Arkansas looked super crisp on offense, Notre Dame bowed its back and forced a field goal. So they forced 2 field goals early. Or you're talking about it could have been 28-21 instead of 28-13. I think everything gets a little bit different at that point in time. I don't think there's any misunderstanding about Notre Dame being a vastly superior team with more weaponry and more to play for this past Saturday. And another thing I would note is some more 3-and-outs from the Notre Dame defense and limiting Arkansas possessions. That's the fewest. Arkansas only had 9 true possessions in this game. That's the first time this year Notre Dame has held an opponent to single-digit possessions in a game. So I think that is also very significant. Notre Dame held the ball for 17-plus minutes in the second half in somebody else's home. We had talked about time of possession being key. I think that's important.
Yeah, Notre Dame won that by 5 minutes. Now, there were way other factors involved because, JB, you and I thought it would be, a closer game, and that that's how you'd have to, like, at times kind of grind it out. But Mike Denbrock was, I'd say, I'll choose that play and that play and that play. Anything he called made him look like a really good offensive coordinator.
You know what makes a defense look better too? When your offense scores the touchdowns on every single possession. Helps all the defenses out along the way. We'll be back with segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. Segment 2 of Burning Up the Boards is brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. In addition to the museum and various exhibition halls, the campus is open to the public for free camping and is less than an hour from Notre Dame's campus. No reservation required. So whether you're looking to learn more about the history of recreational vehicles in the Kinlan Library or simply a cost-effective, Interesting place to stay on your family road trip. The RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame can provide exactly what you're looking for. Our first question comes from Irish Fan 86. Speaking of Jadarian Price, have you heard whether Price is definitely gone after this season or there's a shot he returns? I know the unwritten rule is running backs with pro potential never stay longer than they have to, but I've heard or read other places that having him as RB1 next year is possible. Any smoke to that?
I don't know if you guys have heard one way or another. I think when we were talking about that, it was when T.O. when it was number one running back, number two running back. Now it's since become a partnership back there, and it would give him a chance to be a lead running back. They're going to have to pay him. He's had many offers prior to this to be paid. I haven't heard that he's definitely gone, and I would think that the way things have evolved here in the last few weeks, it would increase Notre Dame's chances of paying him and keeping him, unless he thinks he's ready for the NFL.
Yeah, it's a reasonable question for sure, and it's a relatively very deep running back class as well. And so I do think there are different variables to this that will make Jadarian Price take a very deep look at this, but he'll also have to reflect back on his own health and recognize that, he missed a year because he tore an Achilles. And so how much does he risk that? But Jeremiah Love is out here, been indicated to me very strongly that he makes north of $2 million this season for Notre Dame. And so if Jadarian Price could have a $2 million deal or a $2.5 million deal to return to Notre Dame, and this time there's nobody that would remotely be even a 1C behind Jadarian Price in 2026. Like there's not anybody there. There's some nice players behind Notre Dame, but I don't think we look at the rest of Notre Dame's depth chart right now and say that guy's going to have a shot in the NFL. But we've said that for a long time about Jadarian Price. So he can make more money on a supermax deal, I'll call it, next year returning to Notre Dame than probably what he would make guaranteed off of his draft positioning, because it's such a deep year for running backs. And I'll try to spend some time the next couple of weeks checking with some NFL scouts and some agents to get a feel for things. The position has been de-emphasized overall in the NFL. It's coming back a little bit. Ashton Jeanty, of course, going number 6 last year. The early scuttle right now is Jeremiah Love would be a top 10 pick or likely a top 10 pick as long as he continues to stay healthy and produce.
Yeah,
go ahead, Tim.
Well, let's say Jadarian Price is, if he came out this year, he'd be the 6th running back chosen in the draft, or 8th. I don't know. Like you said, JB, I mean, the position, or at least where guys are drafted, has been de-emphasized or lower. So, from that perspective, it would make way more sense to stay in college and stay at Notre Dame and get another degree or wherever he is in his education. I don't know that he's I know it's 1A and 1B, Tim. I don't know that he's quite worthy of making what JB just said Jeremiah Love is making.
Well, that's what I wanted to point out. He has an NIL deal. I mean, he has a deal with Johnny Dang, the jeweler. He has a real NIL deal. So on top of that, Notre Dame can pay him some of Jeremiah Love's money. Also, Notre Dame is going to have a 20.5 cap that they don't have now. The real key is, how much does Jadarian Price make compared to a very expensive offensive line that's probably all coming back? I'm not sure how many of those 6 offensive linemen that are very highly paid, 5 offensive linemen that are very highly paid, 6 actually, Joggis is the 6th right now, are going to want to take a cut in their situations to come back to Notre Dame as graduates. Jadarian Price will be a graduate. Total devil's advocate here. He's ruptured his Achilles. He's healthier than he's ever been. He's super fast and will test great. If he comes back and gets 220 carries because he is the number 1 back, is he healthier than he's ever been anymore? No, I don't think so.
I mean, I agree with John that the difference, the 1C part, I think a fully healthy Aeneas Williams, I don't think he's going to carry 220 times.
I'm just saying that was Kyron, and Kyron had Tyree. And this is Jawan Sider, who only plays 2 backs.
Yeah, that he does. Boy,
and also that he'll carry more than 220 if they're any good.
Yeah, that's
14 games instead of 13 games, instead of 12 games. I mean, it's a long season these days, man.
Well, and next year there's the potential for it to be an even expanded playoff to 16 teams which doesn't necessarily add games, but it adds the likelihood that you're playing more than 12 or 13 games. And again, I think we're all Jadarian Price fans of the way
God.
he plays and also the way that he carries himself. But the tire only has so much tread, to your point, T.O., and it's already had one blowout.
Question number 2. Similar to Jordan Faison last year, is Notre Dame required to put Matt Jeffrey on scholarship now that he's played in a game? And I want JB to answer this because this answer is very quick, but JB, you have some insight on variations on this.
Yeah, he's not really required to because he's been on campus longer, and he's competed in lacrosse, and he had to do that first. Faison had not done that. That's significant. The other thing to note is there's no walk-ons anymore in football.
Right, that's the key.
Now Notre Dame has some walk-ons this year because of the way that Notre Dame has elected to distribute money, but it's a 105-man roster. You can fund up to a 105-person roster. You can fund up to 105 fully funded scholarships. Notre Dame is in that 95 range, which means they've got 10 guys that might be getting cost of attendance, or they might be getting some Alston money, but they're not getting full scholarship money. They do have a handful of those guys. They're not required, Jeffrey, but I'm glad this question was asked because I want to note that Notre Dame going into 25-26 with the adoption of the House settlement, with all these changes in the sport, this is direct from someone I talked to on campus. Notre Dame added 29 scholarships to its intercollegiate athletics programs. 70% of those went to women's sports, and then more or less the rest all went to football. Baseball is still only at 11.5, whereas the SEC and the ACC are at about 34 scholarships. That's another podcast topic. That's another, how I feel about that. But anyway, initially Notre Dame had been going to add 19 to 21 scholarships, but they decided to ratchet that up to 29 added scholarships in the 25-26 year across its intercollegiate athletics program. So everyone knows I'm not very good at math, but 70% went to women and the rest went to football.
Matt Jeffrey's fast.
He is. And by the way, Matt Jeffrey has played 4 games. That was not his first. He's like 5th on the team in special team snaps.
Kick coverage. Yeah, he punt cover. He downed the punt whenever Rendell last punted. I don't know, last year sometime. He downed a punt at the 1. That was A&M.
Right. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, he's out there. There's only a couple guys play more than him on special teams. So, and there's no walk-ons. Then if they had to do something like not put him on scholarship or put him on scholarship, somebody else just gets the NIL money. It's never a thing to worry about again. Now that Notre Dame had the grandfather clause, they didn't have to kick out players because that was the only thing that really mattered left over with roster when 120 coming back. What are you going to do if they make you have 105? I'm really glad it worked out for not just Notre Dame, but everywhere else.
And I think real quickly, I would just say, I think Notre Dame's at around 117, 118 players technically
out there now.
So,
question number 3 from MN Irish 2019. Given that 6 of Coach Freeman's 12 losses have come in August or September, is it fair to say ND has a fall camp prep problem? I will point out the 7th loss also came the first week of October against Louisville.
I mean, I think it's certainly fair to ask that.
Yes,
nobody else is opening at Miami and Texas A&M, but I mean, it is what it is, and we saw a team coalesce this past weekend at Arkansas, and how many times have I said every 7 days? I mean, the thought process prior to Saturday's game and now is completely different. They put it all together. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say. And what do you think Marcus Freeman will do about that? He will study it and dissect it and seek counsel on that and come up with every way imaginable to prevent it from happening. But it has been a habit here early in his head coaching career at Notre Dame.
Well, this once again gives me a chance to cite the story that I did coming into the college football season that I wrote. What do Boise State, LSU, and Notre Dame all have in common? Which those 3 teams also lend themselves this year, especially to 6 degrees of separation Kevin Bacon, since Boise State's coming into Notre Dame Stadium this week, and LSU is coached by former Notre Dame head man Brian Kelly. Nobody has opened its season away from home more than those 3 teams in the top 25 this decade. Notre Dame has not opened its season at home since 2000. It's played 5 consecutive games away from home to open the season. 3 of those have been in opponents' backyards. I believe it. Yeah, three of those. or maybe it's no, it's four of those. It's four of those have been in opponents' backyards, opponents' power conference opponents' backyards. So I don't think like I understand the question. I get it. Early season losses to Marshall is Marcus Freeman growing as a head coach to Northern Illinois. It's still inexplicable to me. Miami is not inexplicable to me whatsoever. What Notre Dame needs to do to prepare better is get an athletic director that lets Marcus Freeman open the game at home. So that's what I would say. And Marcus Freeman laughed when I asked him that question and said, "Are you asking if I would rather open a season at home?" Yeah, but this is why you come to Notre Dame. Well, you can come to Notre Dame and play in Lambeau Field, but it doesn't have to be your opener.
I'm gonna try to look at this analytically completely here. I'm gonna throw out Ohio State at Ohio State in the first game he ever coached because Ohio State's a better team and they were favored by more than 10 points. Okay, so they have had, because they play tough teams, at least 10, yes, at least 10 pick'em games where the spread is within 4.5 points. Okay, 5.5 points. Road home. You got Ohio State 2023. You got Miami and A&M this year. You got A&M the other year. You have at Duke with Riley Leonard. You have North Carolina in Freeman's first year. That was a close spread. You have a 4-point spread with Arkansas, and you have a 5 or 6 point spread with NC State. Notre Dame is 5-3. Seems fine, right? Well, now you throw on Northern Illinois and Marshall, and you can say it's fair to ask the question and fair to analyze it if you're Marcus Freeman, because you've lost 5 of 10 games. You really only should have lost could lose 4 of those games, right, in a 4-year span. So it is fair. I mean, if you're going to give someone credit for always steamrolling everybody for 2 months, let's look at September too.
And I would say I do think it's worth noting that Marcus Freeman is now 19-6, I believe it is, in games away from Notre Dame Stadium that he's won. So that's a pretty darn good winning percentage, almost right at 80% clip. So pretty salty work there by Marcus Freeman having his troops ready to go. But yeah, Notre Dame needs to open a season at home.
Well, I mean, Ron Paulus is heavily involved in the schedule making, and now I don't have the schedules off into the future. I'm not sure how much of a role he's played in what they're currently playing now.
Yeah, and I'm a little tongue in cheek saying like, hey, get the AD to give him a game to open at home, and maybe that's Rice next year. I think that the season maybe starts in 26 on August 29th, and then September 6th is the first Saturday in September, and I think that's the Lambeau Field game. So maybe that Rice game does give Notre Dame a home tune-up before playing Wisconsin, probably with a new coach in Lambeau Field.
I was going to say, Fickle knows a lot about Wisconsin, so that'll be an important resource.
Question from W. Carey 14. How was the game day experience in Fayetteville? I'm always interested in hearing about college towns and stadiums that I have never been to.
All right, I'm going to go out on a limb. I've been to a lot of these SEC, ACC, Big Ten. I don't count the bowl games, but those can count sometimes. Maybe Knoxville was better than Fayetteville, and I don't know if that's true. I think Fayetteville's the best place I have ever been in terms of fans, not in stadium atmosphere, fans, campus atmosphere, Dixon Street, everything about everybody there was the best place I have ever, most enjoyable road trip I've ever gone on. Maybe 04 Knoxville. In 99 Knoxville, I had never been there, so I was kind of more in awe. But I remember 04 Knoxville a little bit more because we spent some time there. But this is fantastic place to visit.
Is that Friday night or is that game day?
Friday night and game day. I mean, it was a Saturday night too. It was absolutely fantastic. They were awesome on Friday night. They were better on Saturday night. We were at a bar, Tin Roof, where an Arkansas baseball player found out that we had a Notre Dame best baseball player with us. They could not have had more fun comparing stories that they were baseball players in college. It was everything. I didn't run into one fan. I know someone ran into one fan. They're just like, "Oh my God, the guy behind me threw something at me." But the fans were phenomenal at Fayetteville, and it's one of the coolest towns I have ever visited for a game.
I mean, I thought like pregame as opening kickoff is about to happen. It seemed like a tremendous atmosphere, but it was true that, you know, if you got them down, they were going to fade collectively. We could all feel that. I think the problem there is that they're accustomed to that happening.
Well, yeah, Memphis made that a big deal too.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult to avoid that if it's a pattern where you're consistently falling behind. Although their offenses had been so good, they were averaging 30 points in the first half in their first 4 games, and then, of course, that was shot down pretty quickly. But I enjoy it. I'm not overly difficult to impress when it comes to game day atmospheres on the road. Georgia's for me. Georgia is. I think that's I would put that ahead. I mean, I think I would put that up with Knoxville.
Unfortunately, I stayed in Atlanta that weekend.
Yeah.
We all stayed in Atlanta that weekend.
Yeah, I can't vouch for any of your post game and Friday night stuff. I didn't experience all that, but I thought it was pretty cool atmosphere. I thought it was going to be one that was going to give Notre Dame some difficulty, and then it didn't because of what happened on the football field.
Yeah, I've already alluded to the fact I didn't make this trip. I have been to Fayetteville before. It's a much, much better atmosphere for a night game, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it, T.O. I guess I'm just frankly stunned that neither of you led with West Lafayette. So
there's no road that leads to West Lafayette from South Bend, Indiana, JB. You know that.
Talk about conditioned.
Yeah, you know that.
I've been in Ross-Ade Stadium a lot, and they are conditioned for beatdowns.
Yeah, they're black and gold Arkansas, if you want to look at it that way. Question number 5, Troy Murphy, GOAT. What is the next step for this offense? I'm glad he asked that because they got to keep going. They are showing they are elite, but what are maybe 1 or 2 things they can start to do that would make them absolutely automatic, for lack of a better term?
JB, go right ahead.
Well, I mean, pick up a few more of those 4th and 2s, or the 4th and 1 that proved so huge against Texas A&M at the time. That was at midfield, and maybe it was because Love bounced it outside and felt like he could just outrun to the edge because we've seen him do it so much. But they're vastly improved. I don't think they're quite just complete road graders yet. They're much improved, but they're much improved because they're blocking, as we've discussed ad nauseum, for 2 NFL backs. There's no question they're blocking for 2 pros. Keep growing better and blocking like pros. But otherwise, for Marcus Freeman, and I'm always going to defer to the coaches who know so exponentially more than us, for Marcus Freeman to say we were maybe a 4th and 2 and finishing out that drive from playing a perfect game on offense, that's pretty strong words from the head man. I don't ever recall him saying that on either side of the ball, and they've had some fine performances.
He alluded to the fact that we were talking about offense, and he essentially said, bells and whistles, pre-snap stuff. We don't need a whole lot more offense. It's just execution. And so for me, I think the receivers are coming around. The quarterback is growing exponentially, and the running backs are, they are what they are. To me, it's still the offensive line. And no, I don't think that they're road graders yet. I think that they abused Arkansas's defensive line like we anticipated they could do it. I said this in Tail of Tape, and I don't want to be fair, and I'm not saying that he's not playing well, but I don't see Billy Schroeder as a dominant lineman now. I think he's good. I don't think that he gives he doesn't have a lot of busts, but is he the dominant lineman that I think we anticipated coming out of high school? Because I almost ranked him number 1 in the class, for whatever that's worth. Wagner is, a little bit more of a finesse player than a monster off football. I think Ashton Craig's a really good football player. I think Anthony Knapp is the most underrated of the offensive linemen because we remember him giving up a sack after he just mangled his left ankle and refused to stay out of the game for 1 more rep. I think he was sensational again this past week, as he was against Purdue, except for the sack. And I think Gerby Lambert's going to be great. So. And I think he's showing a lot of that as he gets more reps. He's still very young to college game. So for me, it's just becoming even that much more dominant. And I only bring up Billy Schroeder because I think that he can become I always thought he would become a dominant offensive lineman. I don't think he's there yet. He's not a guy. When we watch the game, the TV version of the game, we can't watch. We'd have to run the play back 10 times to watch every player on offense, including the offensive line. I just don't see him like standing out, like blowing people off the football. When he starts doing that, then they're going to another level.
I agree, JB. 3rd and short. They're about 8 for 19 on 3rd and short. Missed a couple of 4th downs, obviously, too, against Texas A&M and also here against Arkansas. And I still don't think that's like the one spot I don't think they have down offensively. By the way, they don't have it down defensively either. 0 for 7 against Arkansas on 3rd and short. 0 for 7 matters if you're looking. Oh, actually, that leads into our next question. I will jump into that
short,
right now.
How when you say short, is that
3rd
less
and 2?
Than 3 yards?
Yeah, I do less than 3 other.
Because those little turnout routes by
on running plays. On running plays.
I understand. Those can work. And they did work this past weekend. But yeah, you want to be able to. That's why I say the next step is being really dominant with your offensive line in those situations.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 0 for 7 was the defense. I flipped over to that, which is where we go here to Bobby V21. On the last podcast, everyone pretty much agreed that their feelings on the game could drastically change if Leonard Moore couldn't play. After this performance, how drastically have your feelings changed about this defense for the remainder of the season?
We go from one game to the remaining 8 games. I mean, I'm not ready to go there yet. I understand the question. I get it. But I thought it was a breakthrough for the secondary without Leonard Moore. I thought it was a breakthrough for Zachary. It was great to have Devontae Smith back and playing the way he played. Tay Johnson, how good's he going to be? That dude's going to be really, really good. Dallas Golden, I think there's a great upside there. They played better than I anticipated. They played more aggressively. They played more confidently and fast. That part has me changing my mind. But look, I'm not ready to declare one game, although it was against a really good offense, but I'm not really ready to declare after one game that, okay, everything's okay and they're going to start blasting people again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to quote Denny Green a little bit here, they are who we thought they were. No, they're getting there to who we think they can be. Am I drastically altering? No, because we still, T.O. alluded to it very well, we still saw a couple of plays Saturday where you're like, okay, Notre Dame won convincingly, but won convincingly 56-29 instead of 56-13 if Taylor Green hits a guy wide open downfield, if that swing pass is executed and goes for what it does. So victory can, in channeling all my coach speak here, victory can mask a lot of things. That dominance of that victory and the fact that a team more or less folded up its tent masks a little bit, but there was definite improvement. People know that I've been pretty bullish on Tay Johnson going all the way back to the end of July and going into August camp. Johnson and Schuler combining for 14 tackles on Saturday. Schuler forced and recovered a fumble. I think Tay Johnson had a PBU. So I feel really good about where the two safeties are, and I think Notre Dame has really found something that will be stabilizing and also dynamic moving forward. Like they're stable there now with Schuler and Johnson, but I think the more those two play together, the more we're going to see the dynamic abilities of both.
Schuler's the biggest change for me, and if you want to throw like one play out there instead of, I don't make a drastic change on this until they play USC. I mean, USC could go score 38 easily on Notre Dame, but Schuler being Schuler again is huge. And if we want to do one play, and it's totally fair to look at the couple plays in the Arkansas game, if Adon Schuler just goes and catches the ball against Miami, people aren't absolutely up in arms after that game about Notre Dame's defense either. He just has to stand there and run into the guy, or he has to catch the ball, or you know what I mean? Any play on the ball, they don't score a touchdown.
Yeah.
And it's just a different, and then you're looking at things differently. You're like, oh my God, they stopped him at the end of the half. So that happens in football games.
I would agree with you about, the real measuring stick is USC, but Latrell Caples, Ben Ford is a playmaker. Wait till you see their tight end, Matt Lauder. That's an NFL football player. You'll see that. And then who's the other guy that Chris Marshall. These guys are going to challenge Notre Dame's secondary. Now, what's going to happen up front? Can Notre Dame get the pressure on Madsen behind a pretty good offensive line? But I think this weekend will be a good challenge for Notre Dame's secondary again. I want to point out where I don't think Boise State can win this game because I don't think their defense is going to be good enough. But the skill position guys will challenge Notre Dame this weekend. We have a couple questions paired up here, starting with Dutter25. Great to see these young DBs having some success. With that said, do you foresee them getting more playing time going forward? And then from CP11, now that Tay Johnson has seemingly locked down the safety spot opposite Schuler, does Stroman get a shot at nickel?
Go ahead, JB.
I think we're going to continue to see more of the young dudes because Marcus Freeman said today, we want at least three corners we feel like we can rotate. I still think Leonard Moore he's not going to be 100% probably until USC, just being realistic there. And they're going to be very cautious with him because they showed that they can win and be very effective defensively without him this past week against a better offense than what they'll face this week or next week. But we're going to continue to see more of them. I don't know that Stroman fits necessarily at nickel, especially the way that those two guys are playing and coming on. And Stroman is still getting some valuable snaps, and still I think they like Stroman and Talich when they know they need to play their safeties closer to the box, or if they want to bring in even a third safety for run support. So I still think that Stroman has a role on this team. I just think that the ceilings are becoming very clear for Adon Schuler and especially for Tay Johnson. And then one more quick thing on the Boise quarterback, Maddox Madsen, and that is he does have a nice, fairly veteran offensive line. He's only 5'10". I think he's really going to struggle to see downfield against the Irish this week. And I think if they try to roll him out because of that, Notre Dame's athleticism on the edges are going to really make life problematic for him.
I think Stroman is not a nickel. The Hayes in the barn at nickel. You have Dallas Golden and Devontae Smith as two nickels that can complement each other. The Carson Hobbs situation is interesting to me because he doesn't play. So I'm wondering what's happening there. The guy we heard about in camp that could have played nickel eventually was Mark Zachary. Interestingly enough, if you're still when Leonard Moore comes back,
that's kind of how he was recruited.
Yeah, you might have a third guy involved there, but no, I don't think Stroman's strengths are different than Devonta Smith, except Devonta Smith has played 800 more snaps at nickel than Stroman. So Devonta Smith is one of the dudes that's going to be out there.
Yeah, Stroman's not a nickel, does not need to be moved to nickel. They need him, as a backup coming in at safety where he's, really, really physical, way better at being physical than I think playing the football. You're right where you want to be with Devontae Smith back on the field and Dallas Golden. Keep getting Dallas Golden in as much as you possibly can, but Stroman's a safety, and you need him there. You need the depth there as well.
Yeah, the great point on the depth, TP, because Tay Johnson, as much as we're all excited about how he's playing this year coming off an injury. And so let's not forget that. And he's getting ready to be asked to play the most violent and physical football of his entire life for the longest season potentially of his entire life. So you got to keep those guys and be smart.
He's still built like a shooting guard, though.
No, he really is. But, man, he likes to be physical, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he does,
yeah. All right, we had a half a dozen, if not more, questions on Bryant Young. So I included Bryce Young, excuse me. If we had one on Bryant Young, it would be dumb questions for Bryant Young because I could answer that right now. But on Bryce Young, from Irish Utah N. Gentlemen, Bryce Young doesn't seem quite as quick off the snap as he was last year. Am I seeing this right? With his added size this season, has he given up too much burst? And is there a point where a player can simply grow out of a position? Perhaps I'm oversimplifying this, but I'd like to hear your perspective.
John.
I don't know if it's just an adjustment in the defense, if he's being asked to do a little bit more. Has he lost burst, or has he lost the clarity of what he needs to do? I'm not sure what the answer is at all. I still see him flashing from time to time. I still think that he's growing into his body and possesses just remarkable physical traits. I've said for weeks, though, that I think his versatility would eventually allow Notre Dame to have the luxury of playing him more on the interior, particularly if you're in some noted third and long passing situations where maybe you do want him rushing up the middle because he's got those long arms, because he's 6'8" in cleats and he can get his hands up and really be problematic in the throw lanes.
Yeah,
in cleats. Maybe he's not wearing cleats. No, go ahead, Tim. That's good.
Yeah, I think it's the way you put it, JB, I think is good. Is it a lack of burst or is it a lack of clarity? A lot of times it's very difficult to make that determination. I thought he did more good things this past week than he has previously. I think that was pretty clear. He did bounce inside a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
I know he aligned with Mullins on occasion, which I think there are some people like, well, don't put him inside. Well, why not? He's a big guy, and if you get some pressure from the outside, Traore continues to trend nicely on the outside. He needs a compliment out there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to look at him and come to the conclusion that he probably grew a little bit, too fast, too soon. But that was his entire body, because I remember talking to his dad when the Notre Dame first started recruiting him, and I think he was like 6'2" or 6'3" at that time. So he is still growing into his body. He's going to be halfway through his career at Notre Dame. It looks like he'll be around for 4 years. I guess that's one positive with this. But look, love the kid, love the family, love BY as much as anybody I've ever known. I think he will get it, but I think it's a fair question because I just don't, whether it's clarity or burst or size or whatever, he's not playing, he's not fully maximizing his ability, but I remain confident that over the next 2 years, he'll start to do that.
Our final question is about maximizing ability because not everybody predicted it. FL Irish 76, is Mike Brown the most underappreciated coach on this team? Obviously, the talent is better, but the consistency in catching the ball and phenomenal blocking downfield has really stood out. Did you think this unit would be this good just 20 months ago? Or how about just say 7 months ago?
Well, I would argue that some of that consistency catching the football is a result of the guy that's throwing it to them, because he's accurate and he throws the most damn catchable ball I think I've ever seen. I mean, it nestles into the guy's hands. But having said that, look, this is the way we play this game. When receivers aren't playing well, the coach sucks, and you want to get rid of them. Then you tie in the whole recruiting with it, and all of a sudden you have a bandwagon, and you got comments like Dell, over and over again. But Mike Brown, I've said it before, he's turned average receivers into second, third, and fourth round draft picks, at least average coming out of high school, so he must have made them better. Mike Brown I think has always been a good receivers coach. Riley Leonard wasn't always the most accurate, which makes it more difficult for him. And I don't know that Mike Brown is the best recruiting receivers coach out there, but he's a quality coach, and there's clarity that has come with this, and it helps having a guy that throws in a really good catchable ball on a consistent basis where you want to catch it. And that was part of the reason when we talked about, preseason competition with Kenny Minchey, he throws a more catchable ball than Kenny Minchey does.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Mike Brown. The downfield blocking is as good as I've seen from just about any team anywhere. And I've seen other coaches. I'm friends with some coaches that have coached in the SEC that now coach in the NFL, and they would put your ass on the bench no matter how talented you were if you did not block downfield and block for your guys. And so I give Mike Brown tremendous credit for that. Notre Dame had a bunch of drops last year that weren't on Riley Leonard. They weren't always getting the most consistent throwing lanes from Riley Leonard or the best accuracy. But we don't count a ball that sails over your head as a drop. They had a bunch, and going into the playoffs, they were one of the teams in all of college football.
They were number one among playoff contenders, not playoff teams. Among any playoff contender, they were number one in drops. So JB, and they pass less, as you pointed out. Yes. Think about that.
Right. They were number one, and they didn't have the throw volume of Ohio State or whomever, or Oregon for sure. So Mike Brown is doing a great job. He's benefiting from having Will Pauling, Jordan Faison, Malachi Fields, and Jaden Greathouse, dudes that have played a boatload of college football. I still want to see him recruit a little bit better. And what's the next stage of development for Micah Gilbert, KK Smith, Cam Williams? I'm encouraged by those guys. I want to be clear. To me, Joe Rudolph is probably the most underrated guy on the staff on either side of the ball. I think you can make an argument for Marty Biaggi being underrated, as good as he is. But what Joe Rudolph did last year to get Anthony Knapp ready and then to reshuffle and get things situated again this year with Jagasaw, even though they were terrible, I thought, in the opener against Miami, that would be my vote. But Mike Brown has come a long way, I think, and his unit has come a long way.
I like this question because he asked if I would think it 20 months ago, and I said 7 months ago. I'll ask you this right now. Every single human being listening, 4 weeks ago, when Malachi Fields caught 3 balls, Jordan Faison caught 5 for 30 yards, and nobody else caught a ball besides Micah Gilbert. Were you guys saying Mike Brown was underappreciated? That's how much it changes, as Tim Priester says, week to week, and in this case, month to month. But they are really surging, Notre Dame's wide receivers and CJ Carr. That was 3 weeks ago. Nobody was getting the ball. Or, excuse me, 4 weeks ago.
Jordan Faison has been sensational.
Man, I can't get a straight answer from anybody about his improvement because they all just say he's always been good. But I know he has improved, Tim Priester and John Bryce. Either way, that's it for today's podcast. Join us at Irish Illustrated for Priester's Tale of the Tape, JB's Notebook. My Monday musings will happen. But until then, we will have Jawan Sider and Tay Johnson. Ty Washington, for some reason, is going to come talk to us, guys, on Tuesday night. Mark Zachary, and I forget the other, but Marcus Freeman back Thursday afternoon.
No Cole Until Mullins.
Then, Cole Mullins, yes. Well, perfect timing. But Ty Washington, I think, is going to have a pretty big crowd when he comes out to talk to us. Until then, for Tim Priester and John Bryce, and I'm Tim O'Malley. Thank you for listening and watching Irish Illustrated Insider.